I'm here with a really special guest.
Hey, how's it going?
And we're going to talk about drugs and stuff. So tell us a bit about yourself, about your background with the supernatural and stuff.
I've always been interested in the paranormal ever since I was a kid, watching a show that used to be on TV called The Extraordinary, which was, I'm pretty sure everyone from my generation recalls this show.
The guy had the best voice.
Yeah. It was genuinely scary as a kid. And maybe even now, if I go back to watching it. Yeah. Or maybe it's just cheesy now.
So you were a fan of like sci-fi and stuff growing up?
Yeah, as a kid, and horror. And I used to watch.
Did you have any religious upbringing or anything?
From a Baptist family, but I just never really subscribed to it.
You were the Bart Simpson of the family.
Yeah.
Cool. Eat my shorts, mother.
Yeah. I thought maybe there is a possibility that ghosts exist, but I didn't really have any first-hand experience until I went to Denmark back in the mid-2000s and stayed with one of my friends out in the countryside in his parents' house, which was this really old mansion in the middle of the Danish countryside. I had the spare room. And one night I was just laying in bed. It was probably like 1 a.m. I just couldn't sleep. And I sort of felt like I was in this sort of mode between sleeping and being awake. And I heard this faint voice, sort of like a little Danish girl's voice, like, it's like, is this a dream or what's going on? Then I sort of looked in the corner and I saw this sort of spectre, like really, really faint, shadowy little, like it looked like the size of like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old girl in the corner of the room. But at the same time, I felt this feeling that my body was being anesthetized. I was just paralyzed, and then the voice was getting louder and louder. I was like, then all of a sudden, had this distinct feeling that something was trying to jump into my body, into my vessel, like some sort of possession from this girl, like some lost spirit. And for about 15 seconds, I just couldn't move at all, but I had this really negative feeling, this like bad energy was just floating through my body. And
you got visited by the hag, my friend. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard of that, but this was more like a little girl, not the old hag. It was just really terrifying. I couldn't move, I couldn't yell out, I couldn't do anything. I just felt totally at the mercy of this, whatever the hell it was, this spirit trying to get inside me. And then the volume of her voice was getting louder, and I was like this. And then all of a sudden, I just snapped out of it. It's like it had left, like it had a crack of trying to possess me. And then I was just shit scared, sort of trembling, I've just never experienced anything like this before. And I was like, is that like some ghost from this house? Because the house is 400 years old. So I wonder if some girl died in this room or something. I'd never ever experienced anything supernatural like that before.
Yeah.
And then I was just too embarrassed sort of to tell anyone.
What?
Like the next day I was like, didn't want to say anything.
How's that embarrassing though?
I just thought maybe they'll think I'm mad that this has happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think in the last 5 years, the general knowledge of sleep paralysis has just suddenly exploded. There's been
I had no idea what it was
documentaries
at that time.
Yeah.
And then I came back to Australia and had a job. I was working with this guy who I thought, screw it, I'm going to tell this guy.
Yeah.
He's like, sounds like you've had a visit from the old hag, my friend.
Yeah.
I was like, the old hag? What's this? He's like, I had a look on the internet. There's lots of documentation about this. Then I had a look online and stumbled upon this sleep paralysis thing. And throughout history, there's been artwork depicting demons or like spirits just visiting people as they sleep.
Yeah.
Lots of artwork with little devils sitting on people's chests. Or
it's the same 4 or 5 archetypes as well. It's like dude with a hat or a hag.
I never had the hat guy. But then a few years later, I was laying down in bed And I got that same weird feeling like there was a presence in the room again.
Oh, no.
So, this again, I just knew what it was because you get this distinct feeling that your body's been anesthetized. You're under some sort of weird anesthetic that doesn't feel good at all. It feels like you're totally incapacitated.
Yeah.
And there's something else in the room that's trying to possess you. That's just the only way I can put it. Something wants to possess you.
Yeah.
And it could be an auditory or visual hallucination. And I usually get both, where you can see something in the room. So I was laying in bed, and then I looked up to the window and saw this shadowy mass that looked like Shaquille O'Neal, like a huge black mass, like 7 foot tall, that was climbing in through the window and somehow came through the wall and through the window into the room. And then I had that feeling like I'm totally incapacitated. I can't do anything. I can't scream out. I can't do anything. And then it rushed towards me at like warp speed. And I got that same electric feeling through the body, like something was trying to enter. And you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
You're just totally at its mercy. There's no way you can escape. Because I think you're half asleep and half awake. You're in that sort of state between sleepfulness and wakefulness.
I always liken it to the opposite of sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Your brain's asleep and your body's awake.
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
I mean, yeah, your brain releases chemical to paralyze you.
Yeah.
So you don't suddenly
injure yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just so real. It's not like, you know, when you have a dream and you meet some ghost in your dream, it's like that's pretty real in the dream. But this is way more scary because you actually feel like you're awake. And I think you are a bit awake.
All the details of
it's just you're just back in your room and this thing is trying to get into you.
Yeah.
It's not like you're in some other place that your mind has conjured up. You're actually in your room and you're seeing things in your room and you're awake, but you're completely incapacitated. That's the scary thing.
So have you had a heap of these experiences?
Probably about 20 total over time. But I've met people who've had hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Like I think there's like a secret society of people who have had this experience and haven't told it to anyone.
Yeah. No, a lot of people are like what you said. They're embarrassed. My dad, I was speaking to him about me doing the podcast, and he's like, "Well, I've got a story for you, boy." And you know what? It was just a sleep paralysis story. He had a big, tall guy.
Yeah.
Exactly what you described.
Yeah.
At the end of his bed, and it just kind of like tilted forward.
Yeah.
And like went above his body.
Yeah.
And
trying to enter, maybe like a lost soul.
And also, my mate's girlfriend, she also didn't want to tell anyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. I mean, I've been trying for ages to convince her to come onto the podcast. But like, she was like, basically woke up and got everyone up in the house.
Oh, really?
Because she was that convinced that something was actually there.
Mm.
But the thing that's most screwed up is listen to the podcast I do with Bronwyn, because she had those figures actually bleeding into her waking life.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like getting out of the car and just seeing it like looming there in front of the garage.
Really?
Yeah. Or like just waking up in the middle of the night to get up.
Yeah.
And just seeing it in the doorway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had that.
Yeah.
I always get this distinct feeling that something has entered and I'm being anesthetized. So it's never when I've been walking around or anything.
So what do you think it is?
I've got no idea. At the time, it feels like some sort of soul that's trapped in limbo.
Right.
It's like in the netherworld, like a parallel dimension to what we're on now that's trying to...
So you sense like a sort of frustration from it? Or?
It just feels like it's trying to feed off you somehow.
Yeah.
Like it's trying to... Maybe it's trying to get back into human form or something.
I get a feeling... Look, I get a feeling that if there are spirits, based on all the stories you hear, that negative energy like fear is something that certain types of ghosts and ghouls seem to feed off.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. But it's a distinct feeling of absolute fear, like dread.
Yeah.
When it comes, but it's happened so many times now that I've sort of understood that it's coming and I don't know how to describe it, but there's a way that I can just shield myself from it and just sort of like kick it off, sort of like, oh, this again, this will pass. But the first few times...
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you don't provide it with fear.
Yeah.
And then it can't...
It feeds on fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Some weird sort of feeling like the air has been sucked out of the room when it comes like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, I'm totally at its mercy. But these days, it's all right. This ghoul is back. So like, I know how to deal with it. And even though it's really a bad feeling, you're more used to it. But I remember a few years after that happened at this party I went to, just out the back, sitting around this table, I mentioned this, and a few people were like, oh, that sounds ridiculous, like laughing at it. But then one guy, who I shan't name, he just was looking at me like, with these, he's a real big skeptic as well, traditionally.
Yeah.
He's looking at me, you've had this as well. Like, I'm just getting the feeling that I'm the first person.
Who was it? I'll bleep out their name.
Yeah, he's just looking at me like, look at this. He's like, you've had that as well? I said, yeah. He's like, I've had that a few times.
Yeah.
So I've never told anyone. He's like, it's the scariest shit you could possibly imagine. I was like, yeah, I know. Yeah. It's damn scary. Like, people who haven't had it can't really understand the level of fear when it first happens. Like, truly, truly terrifying. So I can't think of anything more terrifying than that. And he was the only other guy. But then a few years later, I was working at this other place, and one of the girls there, we were talking about it. She said, I've had that like 400 times. She's like, I have it every like third night type thing. She's like, sometimes I don't even want to go to bed because I know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I've heard that it really happens if you're
Kruger.
Yeah, if you're really, really tired and your mind is active. Like, your body is really tired, but for some reason you've got some sort of anxiety about something.
Yeah.
That's when it strikes.
I get sleep paralysis every time I wake up early in the morning. I do something super physical and then go back to sleep.
Yeah, you've had sleep paralysis.
Heaps.
Oh, have you?
Yes, but I haven't come across like a specter or some type of figure.
Yeah.
I'm just trapped.
Yeah.
And I learned over time how to get out of it. I just hold my breath.
But you've never actually felt like there's another
never.
spirit or something.
I just get stuck.
Yeah.
The very first time it happened was the only time something scary happened, and I just heard laughter.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking that I'm waking up, going, oh, thank fuck.
Yeah.
And I was still in the dream.
Yeah.
And I was still in the dream. And I kept waking up still. And this laughter just got inside. It was started from outside of my head and then just went inside my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just this like maniac laughter.
Yeah, maniacal laughter inside your mind. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've sort of learnt to deal with it better. Rarely happens now. There was a time when it was happening like once a week, like a couple of months. But I think that was the time when I learnt to deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your UFO experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember years ago, there was a guy who lived on a farm that we knew who used to dabble in hallucinogens. And I remember once he told us that there were UFOs out in this big valley out in WA. And we used to scoff at him like this guy's mad. This guy's absolutely bonkers.
That's the human way. Hey? You have a different belief than me.
Yeah, or just
idiot.
He's had another experience which we haven't had, so therefore we think he's mad.
Yeah.
But just for years he was sort of like a bit of a laughing stock after the things he said to us at this
Old
gathering.
Crazy Ned.
Oh yeah, Crazy Ned who lives out in the sticks.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, there's UFOs out here. You see them at night time, and he used to have a bit of LSD. And we just thought, all right, this guy's just a mad tripper.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few years ago, I went to a festival in Europe, and we met this German guy at the festival who was selling a bit of LSD. And he said, oh, this is really good stuff. This is California Sunshine. That name popped up in my mind as something that's quite powerful because I'd heard the name a few times.
It's got such a nice name. It's fucked up.
I think that's the stuff that the Grateful Dead and all the guys in Haight-Ashbury and the San Franciscan this California Sunshine stuff I'd heard is pretty powerful. So I thought, you know what? Why not? So me and my two other friends who I went there with, we ended up taking a drop each. And then,
so you've had previous experience?
Yeah. But nothing as powerful as this. But this was about dusk, so the sun's going down, big dance areas lighting up, all the lights are coming on. It's like, all right, now this is the beginning of the night. This is where it's going to get interesting. And we were on the dance floor, and I just started feeling a bit queasy, because that's what happens usually if you have hallucinogens, or that, for me anyway, a lot of other people as well, because I think it's an actual poison that your body's fighting against.
Right. Is it true you can't OD from LSD?
Yeah, you can't die from it unless you do something stupid, like jump off a bridge or something.
Okay.
Think you can fly. But I just remember I needed to go to the toilet, and the toilets were too far away. I just really needed to piss really badly. So I walked out of this dance area, and then it's in this big valley, and I walked across to a bush, and I thought, oh, this is a good place to have a piss. It was probably about 9 o'clock at night, and it was a full moon, so could see everything pretty well. And I went across this bush, and then I just realised, wait a second, looked at the ground, there were all these, looked like skeletons, like fallen soldiers from some medieval battle, sort of similar to Bram Stoker's Dracula, the scene at the start of Bram Stoker's Dracula, where a lot of people are getting killed. There's all these like bodies piled up on the ground, people with swords, and they're all like,
So medieval.
Medieval characters, like from like 800 years ago or something.
Whereabouts in Europe was it?
Hungary.
Okay.
In this huge valley. And that's a place where they've had a lot of battles traditionally, like the Huns and...
So explain why that's peculiar compared to your other experiences.
I just never actually seen distinct figures, like actual entities like that. I'd seen colours sort of warping a bit, and colours more vibrant and bright, and walls that sort of felt a bit like they were oscillating, just sort of a bit warped. Nothing like this before.
Yeah, and that's a major difference, right?
Yeah, because it's like
it's supposed to be just like a bit of a
ghosts, like about 10 ghosts on the ground that look like they've just been stabbed. They're dying on the ground, like sort of lost.
Perpetual
ghouls. Yeah. Oh my god! I needed to have a piss, and they were just strewn around the ground all over the place.
Were they making noise?
So I couldn't really hear because the dance floor was going off.
So you saw them. Did they look like sort of transparent or
transparent, sort of like these tormented souls on the ground with like chainmail and swords, and so shit. These are like ghosts of warriors of years gone by.
Yeah,
and I felt bad, so I just really need a piss.
Sorry guys.
I
appreciate your
piss on this bush, and they're like, like coming out of the ground.
What? Coming out of the ground?
Just sort of stuck in the ground, sort of like Diablo skeletons from that old video game.
Wow.
Like this,
looking at you,
looking at me, trying to come towards me. I was like, I'm just gonna have this piss and get out of here pronto. So I just had to piss, then went back to the main dance area. And my friends were there. They're looking pretty sozzled by this point.
Yeah.
Eyes going in different directions. I was like,
so one question about like taking LSD. What does it do to your mental faculties? Are you pretty much able to still... would you still be able to like do a maths quiz or something?
No, it gets too much. Like looking at a computer screen or like a phone is just too much. It just feels too unnatural. I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't really know.
But you can still make rational decisions, like you're not going to go and eat your dog, or...
Yeah, I can, but I can't say the same for other people. Some people just should not have it.
We've got a probe here.
You hear stories of people jumping off buildings and thinking they can fly. That's just... I've never, ever thought that.
Do you think that's because of the hallucination, or because their mind...
Maybe they have something wrong with them to begin with.
Right.
But I don't have that. I've never had that.
Anyway, continue the story. Yeah, sorry.
So I went back to the dance floor and I said, if you're going to have a piss, don't go to that bush over there. Because there's a bunch of medieval skeletons that you might encounter. And they're like, what? Oh, shit. They're all like fried. I said, yeah, let's just stay here. So we're just watching the DJs, and then it was getting too much because there's like 20 to 30,000 people on the dance floor.
Yeah.
I was like, we gotta get out of here. It's just too much. You just become so aware of energy, and there's just too much energy going on there. It's just too much vibration going on, like the sound and all the people. It's like you just want to go somewhere more quiet. So I said, let's just get out of here, and went to another stage, and then somehow, I don't know what happened, but I lost both of them because there's so many people at this festival. It's pretty dark, and I just thought, I'm just going to walk around by myself and just look at all the installations. There's lots of art installations and stuff. And then I walked back to the campsite, which was on the top of this hill. We'd put our tent up there. And I was walking up this hill, and it was a bit dark. It was a bit shadowed, one side of the hill. Walking up, and I got that feeling again that there were people on the ground. But this time it didn't feel like skeletons from battles, from ancient battles. This time it felt like punters from the festival who were just laying down in the shadows. Yeah. And I was like walking along, like, oh shit, there's a person there. Oh, sorry.
So you could see figures.
Figures, like shadowed sort of figures. It just felt like people who'd also left the main party area to just lay down on rugs and just mung out and look at the stars. And I was like, sorry. And then I looked out, wait, there's no one even there. Just like some grass blowing in the breeze. And then I walked up a bit further. I was like, oh, sorry. Like, there's no one there either. I'm just saying sorry constantly, and like, wait a sec, there's actually no one here at all.
And it was a similar type of hallucination where it's like totally vivid without any sort of warping.
It wasn't quite as vivid as the skeletons were just blatant, because that was like full moon blaring down. I could just see it. And walking up this hill, I just thought there were other people who were camping nearby, but there was actually no one. And then I got up to the tent, and I could hear voices in the tent. It was my two friends in the tent with the little light on, having a chat. I went in there, and I could just see like their eyes were all dilated from the substance. I was like, shit, did you guys see a bunch of people on the ground out there? They're like, yeah, we thought there were a bunch of figures on the ground, but there was actually nobody. I said, oh yeah, I got the same feeling as well. That was a bit weird. And then one of them said, I just want to relax here a bit in the tent. So I said, to my other friend, I said, let's get one of the mattresses.
So at the time when you basically acknowledged that you'd both seen the same thing, what was the reaction to that? Because you just made it seem like, oh yeah.
That was a bit weird. Like, I think their reaction was, what, you saw that as well? Sort of a bit surprised. And then that was weird. I don't really know how to explain that. But let's get one of these mattresses and bring it out. A big double mattress we had. So we're just laying on the hill, me and my friend, and the other one was in the tent. And we're just looking at the sky, laying down. The sky just looked like there was a lot of activity going on. It sort of looked extraterrestrial a bit, like stars zooming in and out, like sort of shooting stars, all this sort of stuff going on, like objects flying around that would just disappear. And then I saw this massive hexagonal sort of dome-like thing in the distance that was sort of half visible. It was sort of like the opacity was like 50%. So you could just, I can see this thing. I said to my friend, "Can you see that big hexagonal shape that's dominating the skyline there?" And he said, "Yeah, I can see that." And then I said, what do you actually see? Because I wanted to test if he saw what I saw, not just listen to me and, oh yeah, I see that. This is like not verifying anything. I was like, all right, I'm going to do a test. What do you see? Okay. Said, I see this hexagonal sort of shape there with some light beams going through it. And it's sort of like honeycomb. And it's just stationary in the sky. It's just there. It's fixed. Like a fixed position. Like, I'm seeing that as well. And I said, what else do you see? Do you see something up there to the left? He said, I've been watching that for the last 5 minutes. I said, what do you see? So I see a big glowing bluish whitish sort of glowing triangle. I said, yeah, that's what I see as well. And so that's when we both sort of freaked out a bit. Like we're seeing exactly the same thing.
I think the implications, like, especially if you're like really high. Yeah. That would hit you so hard that like, is it possible that this is like just in my head?
That's the thing that freaked me out because I got him to explain what I was seeing. Right. It's not like, I see a glowing triangle. Yeah, I see that as well. He could just make that up. Yeah. But I said, all right, let's just keep our eyes on it. So we're watching it. And it wasn't a drone because it was just way too high up. But it had this like glowing sort of beaming lights coming out of it.
Yeah.
Around the perimeter of it.
Just a quick question about that. Did you find that it made you sort of squint, the brightness of it?
No, it was just too far. It wasn't like a huge beaming sort of thing.
Okay.
It was just like it was some sort of color that I've never seen before.
I asked that question because a lot of people that say that they've seen UFOs, they get blasted with like the brightest light they've ever seen.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them sort of squint. It doesn't.
I've never had one of those sort of traditional cliched UFO moments. I just felt like this substance we were on had calibrated our minds to a different frequency.
Yeah.
So we went from our default, which is just looking up at the stars, to being able to see something on a different frequency.
That's usually hidden.
Yeah, that's usually hidden. So we're not, it's like our minds are an antenna and our eyes that can pick up different frequencies if you give your brain the right conditions. And one of those conditions can be through meditation, apparently, which I haven't experienced because I haven't delved into that. But you hear stories of mystics in India and different places who actually can go into this parallel frequency and experience things. And that's what hallucinations do, but it's like a cheat way of doing it, cheat code in a video game, like being able to see through walls in Doom or something,
It's a potion.
Yeah, potion. It is a potion.
You know how traditionally the thought of a UFO is like a distant planet, some civilization that has had their own type of technological development where they can get to the level of being able to do intergalactic travel and stuff. The idea of it being so physical, as in like they're hiding behind the moon or something like that, or they got some type of shielding, is becoming a thing of the past.
Yeah.
I've been watching, I was watching a few interviews about this yesterday from the leading UFO people, and they're all saying the same thing, that their technology basically can phase them through to a different part of the reality spectrum. Yeah. So the other side,
Traditionally, I always thought like maybe UFOs can exist with that, combustion technology that we're familiar with, jet propulsion, they've just discovered some way to propel themselves through space much quicker. But now, after having this experience, I've thought maybe they're actually folding space, just being able to pick a coordinate in the universe and somehow go there through energy, like some sort of way of teleporting themselves. Not necessarily using fuel, but using some other technology. It's beyond me, really.
The leading theory is that they compress time-space in front of them. And it just kind of like they just drop into it. Yeah. So they compress all this.
Yeah, that's folding space.
Well, it doesn't fold. Like there are no 2 points connecting, and they go through a wormhole. It's kind of like it just gets compressed, like squeezed. Oh. And they just kind of like, to them, they just go whip, like a little distance. But they've actually gone like light years. Yeah.
Sort of beyond my understanding. But the distinct feeling I got from this was these aren't your typical nuts and bolts pieces of machinery. Yeah. It's more like light. They're more light beings, more like energy. It's sort of...
You want to say spirit beings, don't you?
What?
I mean, that's the only word we have for it right now.
Not spiritual beings, just beings that are on a different frequency.
But what doesn't make that spiritual? Look, the whole New Age thing has kind of like, it's got so many stigmas attached to it, but it's funny how a lot of what they're saying is turning out to be what people are discovering, especially to do with consciousness and the other side.
Yeah, through meditation and whatnot. Yeah, I just got the distinct feeling that this was energy that was being transferred throughout space. Yeah. And that big hexagonal shape that was dominating the skyline was potentially the mothership. Maybe it had docked at this part of Earth and just sent out some probes to have a look around. Yeah. Because the feeling I got from this glowing triangle was that it was a probe that was examining what was going on. Didn't feel like a threat at all. Mm-hmm. And I got the feeling that it was aware that we were watching it and vice versa. So... there was never a threat. It was just like, oh yeah, we're just both examining each other.
The other podcast that I did with a also anonymous person said that they felt the same thing. They saw it out of their car window about 7 meters away. There was a feeling of recognition of like, hey, we see each other.
Yeah.
An
it's hard to explain. Yeah, some sort of telepathy going on between you and whatever it is.
Yeah.
When you're in that state, because you've been open to that frequency. Because you hear of stories of people having strange sort of instances where they say they're thinking the same thing and say it at the same time on these substances. Like, well, I was just thinking that. It's like you've tapped into some sort of field where you can communicate, but not necessarily through a verbal means of communication, but some sort of energetic, mental communication. Yeah. Like, just hard to explain. But
well, I mean, telepathy is one of those things. It's easy to understand, but it's like, how the fuck does it work?
Yeah,
and that seems to be the kind of building block of what this whole a totally different knowledge set.
Yeah,
it's like having to learn a new set of physics.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you'll think of something and then your friend will say it like within half a second of you thinking it, and you haven't even thought that for years. So maybe we're tapping into the energy field of that other person and accessing that piece of information that's just come up in your energetic field. You know, you can watch a bird fly past with a friend and you're both experiencing that physically, but you can also have a thought and maybe you can both experience that thought simultaneously if you're right near each other. So maybe that's what this whole MK Ultra thing's about, you know, being able to read minds, and the CIA's been into this for years. And
MK Ultra, they did some funny stuff, dude.
Did they?
Have you heard of Acoustic Kitten?
No.
They wired up a cat, or they were trying to train cats that had microphone and antenna implants put into them.
Oh, really?
And transmitters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they implanted them into these cats, and the idea was that they could spy on the Russians. They just like send all these cats to, but it got cancelled because they wouldn't do what they're told.
Yeah, they just walk off into the bushes or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the other one, like they spent a lot of money on like trying to find ways of extracting information from people through prostitutes.
Yeah.
They set up this brothel.
Yeah.
And they spent all this money on trying to develop that means of and it's just
information extraction. Yeah.
And then they were like, no, you're just kind of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't work.
No, it didn't. They did heaps of weird stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because when it comes to the government trying to get, all right, we need an answer to this. They don't care about ethics and stuff. They're just like, whatever it takes. We'll try even this weird thing.
Yeah.
You know, I read Harry Potter yesterday. Let's try that. You know, they'll do it.
They'll give it a crack. Yeah. Yeah. So we were watching these triangles fly through the sky. Yeah. Not really fly, more like slowly just move.
Patrol
the sky, but really, really slowly.
Yeah.
So I said, let's just keep our eyes on these objects for as long as we can and don't look away. Yeah. So we'll both just keep monitoring it. So we're just watching for like 20 minutes and definitely wasn't a drone. Definitely not. Mm-hmm. Like, I know what a drone looks like. It's sort of cruising along with some flashing lights. This was this strange glowing triangle.
Even the movements of a drone, you can tell like when it stops, it has a certain type of wobble to it.
Yeah. And it was just scanning. It just felt like a probe that was just having a look at what was going on down on the ground.
And you felt some type of intention coming from it.
Yeah.
Did your friend also say the same thing?
No, he didn't say that. Okay. We were just watching it at that time. But later on, I thought maybe because this festival attracts people who generally think different to the
New Age hippies of this era.
Yeah, the New Age hippies. But they're also quite intelligent, these people. Yeah. But they're on the fringes of society.
Right.
This festival's not really
open free thinkers.
Free thinkers and a lot of scientists and uber intelligent people going to these festivals. And it's not really a massive alcoholic festival, so most people are dabbling in hallucinogens as opposed to just getting trashed and doing cocaine and all this, like mainstream sort of festivals.
So it was probably giving off a type of energy.
A type of energy that was interesting for these higher beings, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe they were just saying, "Oh, this is interesting." So they're not being such monkeys anymore, you know, like fighting. And I've never ever seen a single fight at one of these festivals either. Never any. I've never seen any like aggro or anything. It just seems like this utopian sort of society.
This is psytrance.
Yeah. Psychedelic festivals.
Yeah.
There's lots of different genres. There's like all variations. There's bands and stuff. It's not only that genre, but
lots of white dudes with dreadlocks.
No, just people from all over the world. There's like
just giving you
people from. There's this is a worldwide type thing.
Yeah,
all sorts coming.
So you were saying also that you had another experience. Oh, is that the end of this experience?
Oh, just we watched the triangles go through the sky slowly, monitoring, and then they were monitoring. It just felt like they were monitoring the festival, and we were monitoring the triangles. There was much monitoring that that night, and then it just continued, and then all of a sudden just vanished. It wasn't like a plane. A plane doesn't just hover around for 20 minutes within your field of sight. It'll be gone within a couple of minutes. And these drones do not look anything like this. That was really strange, and we were both pretty amazed by it. And then a couple of years later, I went to Thailand and had some magic mushrooms and went down to the beach with my friend. We were just looking at the sky, and I could see.
So have you dabbled with mushrooms as well? In the
previously, a few times.
Yep.
Not really, not that much, but.
Was this a big dose?
I just had a milk. They sell these magic mushroom milkshakes there. So we just had a shake each. Then went down to the beach, and the beach was totally void of any other people. Just like, this is amazing. We got the whole beach to ourselves. We're just looking at the sky. And then I saw, wait a second, I can see that big hexagonal mothership-looking object in the distance again. It was just dominating the sky like a huge dome with the same honeycomb-like hexagonal shapes all connected with bits of energy just going through sort of like a circuit board.
Right.
You know, something from like the 80s, what they thought like the future would look like, with bits of like Tron type.
Yeah.
Like just all this energy going through. And I said, do you see what I see? I just did the same test. He said, I see it's like a honeycomb. So, just explaining what I was seeing.
Right.
So we're having to share a visual. And I used to call it a hallucination, but now maybe it's not even a hallucination. Maybe it's just something you're seeing, on this different frequency.
Yeah.
Hallucination suggests that it's not actually there.
Mm-hmm.
But this seemed like it was there, and we're both experiencing it. And then I saw another glowing blue whitish triangle, just like I'd seen at that other festival. And I said, do you see that up in the sky? Pointing, it's like a triangle. So, yep, another triangle. And then I saw another one on the right side. They were both patrolling the sky, just another couple of probes. Felt like it had been sent from that big hexagonal shape, mothership. The same feeling as well, not malevolent. We're just here to have a look around. Don't mind us. Like we don't care. It's sort of like it knew we weren't a threat, and we knew it wasn't a threat. Sort of.
Right.
And then we just watched it for ages, and just went back. And she was all gobsmacked, but I'd already experienced this. So it's like, that's old school. I know about the glowing triangle, but still, it was pretty amazing to see them in another part of the world. And the same big hexagonal shaped mothership.
Yeah, I remember when you were telling me about that, I was like, I'm going to Google this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this the thing you saw? And I just found so many, because I grew up always just thinking of a UFO as a flying saucer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or a cigar.
Yeah.
That cigar
it seems
shape.
like that's a simplified version of what's actually going on. Because back in the old days, people in the Western world particularly, people didn't really have access to hallucinogens like in, the Amazon. People have been into drugs like ayahuasca and stuff for years, DMT, being able to switch frequencies. This is like thousands of years old. The people, native people in the Amazon have experienced this. But
have you ever experienced that?
No. Oh, not ayahuasca, but
have you tried DMT?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that feels like you're switching frequencies there.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely just full on. But
it's the unfortunate thing is it's so easy to dismiss what you're saying because it's drugs, you know.
Yeah.
But I've heard a few accounts. Like I saw this interview with Steve-O.
Yeah.
Know? Obviously that dude is just pickled. He's like a petri dish of like, you know, drugs and STDs.
Yeah.
But like he was saying he had this one experience that was different to the others where the visuals were far more coherent. It wasn't like a bunch of squiggles and colours. And,
yeah, it's really clear.
Yeah.
I think mainstream society, drugs just get lumped into one category. It's like, that is something bad.
Yeah.
But they all just have a different function, like cocaine, and you know that just expands the ego and makes people much more jittery and alert and sort of more of an egotistical, egocentric drug. You know, a lot of rock stars and actors, you know, their egos just get out of control. But I don't think it's beneficial at all. It's just you see a lot of casualties from that.
Would you say that that's a similar thing with all stimulants?
Yeah, they're functional, but they have the potential to burn people out. I think, and lead to different sort of physical.
I sort of found that because I got diagnosed with ADHD, and before taking the medication, I was like a lot more of a free thinker, I think. But I got hyper focused on like, you know, here and now.
Yeah.
And this physical realm, I feel like my connection, because I used to be a lot more spiritual as well. My connection to that kind of
dwindled.
Yeah, it's like all these windows and doors just got shut off, and I'm like, I'm right here, and I'm going to do lots of work.
Yeah, but I think that's why these drugs are probably allowed in society, because they're functional and they can just keep the world ticking along.
Yeah,
like if everyone was doing hallucinogens and looking at UFOs, the current system would just collapse, and there's too many people with vested interests in profiting from the current system to allow. I think that's why hallucinogens are outlawed, because they don't want people to be expanding in this sort of way. They prefer drugs that contract the mind, like alcohol, bring you back to more caveman sort of setting, you know, fighting, you know, just do your work, and then on the weekend you get your respite where you can be a caveman and just retard your brain for a bit and then go back to job on Monday.
Do you think that the government knows the full truth about UFOs?
I have no idea whatsoever.
Yeah.
All I know is the experiences I've had. I don't know. They've probably I'd say they would have definitely experimented with all of these hallucinogens, and they know a bit about what's going on. And say, actually, they probably studied this in depth in the shadows.
Yeah.
But that's probably classified information. But,
I mean, the idea of it is just bizarre, man. Like, you're changing your perception of reality. And
that's what people are scared of.
Yeah. Because you want to keep your reality.
Some people are...
Because that's the definition of losing your mind.
Yeah. I've always just been willing to experiment, and I feel like I can handle it. A lot of people, I don't know, it is dangerous to dabble in these substances, because you hear horror stories of people losing their minds and going off, being committed to mental asylums. I think if you've got a history of schizophrenia in the family, then it's not advisable. You can go off the deep end.
Yeah.
But I luckily have never had that experience. I've had a few experiences where I've been looking after a couple of people who've gone off the deep end.
Really?
And that's the only bad experience that I've really had, because it's ruining my trip, basically. Selfish stuff. Like, now I have to be the babysitter. But I've never had it myself. Really. Yeah. But, yeah. So I just think hallucinogenic drugs have the capacity to change the channels in your mind, much like pointing the remote at the TV. You can just change the channel by pushing buttons. These are just other buttons.
Yeah.
It's like different radio waves, X-ray, gamma ray, Wi-Fi signals flying through the air, just because we can't see them. We're not perceptive to them.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not there. Like
all these other types of waves that we don't know about. Yeah.
That just haven't been discovered.
Yeah.
And
that's totally fair. I think that's one of the most naive things, that people base definitive theories only what we've discovered.
Yeah.
When it even shows, like, historically that there's so much more.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to the flat earth thing, but there were people back in the day who thought if you sailed to the edge of the world, you'd sail off the edge.
Yeah.
But
so finally, why do you want to be anonymous today? I mean, I want to encourage other people that want to talk about.
I want to discuss the information, but not actually be known, because I just don't feel like I want to be known. Yeah. I don't know. It's just too out there. It's too out there for most people. You know?
Yeah, people should be a lot more like open-minded with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, but they won't. They won't.
Why is
the
that?
programming is just too strong in society.
Yeah.
It's been demonized too much.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly because of what happened in the 60s with Timothy Leary, the whole tune in, drop out, whatever the quote was. You know, that led to a lot of impressionable youths just going way overboard with their hallucinatory excursions.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
You know, it was legal until that whole
until he ruined it.
Who ruined it for everyone. The whole Haight-Ashbury, San Franciscan hippie movement of the late 60s, where there was a little bit too much dabbling going on. I think that really hindered the whole progress of the scientific studies being carried out.
Yeah.
But they've been doing it behind closed doors, but they haven't been able to do it publicly.
Yeah.
But I think only lately in the last couple of years, they've actually gone more public with their experimentation, and they're actually doing studies on the benefits of microdosing, you know, for getting people out of
heard a lot about
looping cycles. And,
you
know, repetitive behaviors which are detrimental to people. It allows you to look at yourself and your own behaviors and break free. Mm-hmm. You can have these epiphanies on it. And
explain microdosing.
Just having enough that's not really...
Enough of what?
Oh, just LSD. But yeah, I think you can do it with extract from magic mushrooms as well. I think you're supposed to take it so that your mind gets this effect of it, but you're not visually impaired by it. And it's not like being on a full-on trip, you know.
Yeah, just a little wakey.
A little wakey that isn't really messing with your day-to-day life. So you get a lot of people in Silicon Valley who are actively microdosing each day and making breakthroughs, help your brain to create more connections in parts of the brain that are usually dormant. If you're just working on a particular task, you're using one part of your brain, but this lights up other parts. They've done MRI scans on people's brains after taking hallucinogens and found there's a lot more activity going on. So I've actually felt that when I've had these substances, that feels like my intelligence has raised a bit because it's activated parts of your brain that are usually dormant.
You got more tentacles.
Yeah, more tentacles. Yeah. But even with music, like I'll be coming up with some ideas that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So maybe that's because your brain's more active and activated. The neural pathways are all up.
I find that, like, just, you know, when my brain's tired or when my brain's fatigued, something like making music, there are so many obstacles. Yeah. It could be anything. And
it's the hard wiring after a lot of repetitive behaviors.
Yeah.
But that's what I think what hallucinogens can do. They can break that down and rewire. They help to rewire, I think. But don't quote me on that either.
Yeah.
I'm no scientist.
Let's go lick some frogs.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks so much.
No worries.
If you have any more experiences, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for listening. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff.
Disclaimer, don't listen to a word I say.
All right. Take it easy, man. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.